جزاك الله خيرا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. Brothers and sisters, I think the last 2 or 3 weeks we have been speaking about a core principle of Islam, inviting to good and forbidding evil. Amr bil ma'ruf and nahi anil munkar. We said this is a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a responsibility that He has given us as the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And since Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the final prophet and messenger, we are all responsible to convey the message. And in conveying the message, we are protecting ourselves, because when we invite people to good and forbid evil, it's one of 2 cases. Either people will accept the advice and the invitation, and so we are rewarded for their actions, or people will not accept our invitation. For example, you ask somebody to do something good and they refuse to do it, or you ask them to give up a sin and they refuse to give it up. Then at the very least, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect us from falling into that sin and will give us the ability to do that good. So we have a responsibility to convey the message. We are seeking reward by inviting others, and we are seeking to protect ourselves by inviting others. And then we finally said last week that the reason Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar is so important and so emphasized in the Quran as a description of the believers, believing men and believing women. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتُ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. They are supporting friends of one another. يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. They invite to good. وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. They forbid evil. The reason for this, one of the reasons for its importance in the Quran, is that it has a huge impact on the environment that we are living in. The idea is that the Muslim is seeking to change the environment he is living in from an environment of misguidance to one of guidance, from an environment of disobedience to one of obedience. And this can only be achieved if a person works and acts out against evil and invites to good. In relation to being in the right and correct environment, we have a number of, we are social beings, so we are going to live amongst people, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam invite us for our own, for the protection of our belief and the protection of our character, our moral character. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enjoins that we keep the company of the righteous, meaning that we place ourselves in good environment, one that is conducive to our iman and our lifestyle. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu taqullaha wa kunu ma'as sadiqeen. That all you who believe, be conscious of Allah and remain in the company of the truthful. Those who are truthful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of their belief and their actions, but also those who are truthful in speech. Because by keeping the company of the truthful, one is protecting themselves. They are protecting their iman, they're protecting their character. And so a Sahabi radiallahu anhu questioned Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that, Ya Rasulullah, if a person loves a people but he's not able to reach them in terms of deeds, they are well ahead of him or her, but he loves them, So Rasulullah said, Al-mar'u ma'a man ahabba yawm al-qiyamah. A person will be with those whom he loves on the day of Qiyamah. And so the people who, the environment that we place ourselves in, and more importantly, the people that we surround ourselves with, will determine where we are going to end up on the day of Qiyamah. So this is a clear injunction of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that O you who believe, be conscious of Allah. Because keeping good company is not useful if a person is not doing what is expected of them. Yeah? An example of this are the munafiqeen in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They had good company. They were with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were with Sahaba. They were in Masjid al-Nabawi. They went to the Kaaba, to Mecca. But because they themselves did not implement the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they did not benefit from that company. So the first thing is that a person needs to make the right choices for themselves. This is why Allah says, Ittaqullah, be conscious of Allah. So in your life, trying to be conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means that you implement the commandments of Allah as much as you are able to. In terms of ritual worship, in terms of fasting and salah and zakat, so on and so forth. Also in terms of your dealings with people, and in terms of qualities and characteristics, truthfulness, generosity, forgiveness, tolerance, so on and so forth. So all of these a person has to implement in their life, and then avoid sins, avoid major sins, avoid shirk, associating partners with Allah, and the whole list of major sins. Avoid bad moral character, so lying, cheating, deceiving, backbiting, tail bearing, and all of these. So all of this comes under ittaqullah, be conscious of Allah, meaning lead your life while your mind and your heart is aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, aware of His commandments. وَكُونُوا مَعَ الصَّادِقِينَ, and remain in the company of the righteous or the truthful here. Because if you stay in that company, then you are most likely going to maintain what you have and progress, and you are going to be protected. Then in another verse of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَرْكَنُوا إِلَى الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا فَتَمَسَّكُمُ النَّارِ. That do not keep the company of those who are unjust. Because in doing so, it may be that you will be punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the way they are punished. The reason for this is that if you are placing yourself in an environment that is not protective of your iman and your deeds and your Islamic moral character, a number of things are going to happen. Number one is you are going to, at the very least, you are going to witness sin. And we said previously in the known hadith, Rasulullah commands that if you see evil, then change it, act against it physically. If you can't, then verbally. At the very least, you should feel something in your heart. Now, when you feel that something, a particular action is wrong, and you dislike it, and you are in an environment or in the company of people who are committing that sin, then it is not okay to just sit there and smile and continue with your engagement and continue with that company, while in your heart you reject their actions. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that when disbelievers begin to utter words of kufr and disbelief, then leave them, separate yourself from them. And so when a person is sinning, and especially when it is a major sin, then you have a responsibility to act out against it, to speak out against it. At the very least, you need to remove yourself from that environment and that company. This is you making a statement that I disagree with the disobedience that is occurring. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this verse, وَلَا تَرْكَنُوا إِلَى الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا, do not keep company of those who are unjust. Yes, it applies to mainly the tyrants, the people who are inflicting harm on others, injustice on others, doing injustice towards others. But it also applies to people who are wronging themselves. They are unjust towards themselves. They are not aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are not obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather, they are disobedient to Allah. And so if you keep their company and they are sinning, and you are not seeking to do amr bil ma'roof and nahi anil munkar, then one is that you will become desensitized, because today you reject that sin in your heart, but you keep that company for so long, then at the very least is that you're no longer going to consider it a big deal. This is one. Number two, you become included in that sin, because Rasulullah ﷺ says that when a sin has been committed and the person is pleased with it, meaning that they do not object, not physically, not verbally, and not even in their heart, because now they're desensitized, so it's okay. This is the next stage. Then the person who does not object and who is not displeased with the disobedience becomes a partner in that sin. Second possibility. Third possibility is that you are going to sin and you are going to be affected by that company or by that environment. And so you are going to commit sins. How many times do we find ourselves compromising because of the environment we are in? If we were in our homes, we wouldn't do certain things. But because we are keeping a company of some sort, or we are in an environment of some sort, we compromise. Oh, I'm in this place, I cannot pray. I will pray when I get home. Salah is qada, it's okay. I am with these people and they are, for example, consuming something that is haram. I will not take it myself. I consider it to be evil and bad. It is not my habit. But if I stay for so long in that company, then eventually what happens is that I may have a moment of weakness, and I will fall into something that otherwise I would not have taken the decision to fall into or to do. And generally it comes in stages, right? Shaitan is very he takes his time. He'll place you in the wrong place with the wrong people, but he will say to you, no, you will not be affected, you're okay. But what experience shows, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, is that if you don't act out against that evil, you don't speak against the evil, then you will not be protected. Either you become complacent and desensitized, or you will fall into that sin yourself. And so that will result in the punishment of Allah. So Allah Azza wa Jal says, فَتَمَسَّكُمُ النَّارِ. So keeping good company. We all know the hadith of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, where he gives the parable or the example of good company and bad company. The good company is like the person who sells perfume. Either you are going to buy from him, or he's going to, apply some perfume on you free of charge as a tester. Or you are at the very least, you enjoy the fragrance whilst you are in his company. Whereas the blacksmith, either he's going to burn you or burn your clothes. Right? If your clothes don't get burned, then you will come out with the foul sort of smell, and you are affected by it. In keeping good company, it is so important that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep good company. Allah Azza wa Jal said to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and by commanding Rasulullah, this is an extended commandment to all his ummah. He said what? وَاصْبِرْ نَفْسَكَ Remain patient. Stay patiently. مع الذين يدعون ربهم بالغداة والعشي, with those who implore or supplicate their Lord morning and evening. What does this tell you? One is keeping the right company is a command of Allah. Secondly, it tells you that being in the right environment and the good company, the righteous company, is not always enjoyable. This is why Allah says, وَاصْبِرْ نَفْسَكَ, that remain there patiently. Meaning you know, there are times where you want to leave and you want to seek other company, another environment, because this one is not enjoyable. Or these people are not, you don't share, you don't have anything in common with them in terms of likes and dislikes, so on and so forth. But Allah Azza, and they may be poor and destitute, which was the case with the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sat with after this verse was revealed to him. And so the people, that environment is not necessarily something that you are going to be attracted to. No, you have to fight your desire and place yourself, make a logical decision to place yourself in the right environment and with the right company in order to protect yourself. So Allah says, stay patiently with those who implore their Lord morning and evening. يريدون وجهه مع الذين يدعون ربهم بالغداة والعشي يريدون وجهه. They are worshipping and supplicating, seeking His countenance, His pleasure. And then Allah says, وَلَا تَعْدُ عَيْنَاكَ عَنْهُمْ. Do not avert your eyes away from them. Allah is not saying don't leave them, don't leave their company. Allah says don't even change your focus, don't take your focus away, don't take your sight away from them. تُرِيدُ زِينَةَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا, seeking the beauty of this worldly life. Allah did not say stay in the company of good people and don't go to bad people, bad company. No, He said remain patiently in the company of the righteous and don't let your eyes be diverted to the beauty of this world. The beauty of this world is not haram, because Allah says al-malu, wealth, wal-banuna, and children, zinatul hayatid dunya, they are the beauty of this world. So when Allah says in this verse, don't avert your eyes, don't turn your eyes away from them, looking at the beauty of this world, He does not mean looking at something that is halal. No. What Allah is saying in this verse is that generally the people who are going to have ownership of the beauty of this world are going to be bad company. The people that are going to have the material of this world are going to be bad company, because they have made a decision for themselves. They have forsaken the afterlife and they have chosen to live for this world. So whereas the righteous people, they have forsaken this world and they're choosing to live for the afterlife. So naturally, the one who chooses to live for the afterlife is going to have a little less in comparison to the one who is living only for now. So Allah Azza wa Jal says to Rasulullah, although the bad environment or the bad company may seem attractive and flashy and beautiful, and you may desire to place yourself in that because, zinatul hayatid dunya, it is beautiful, it is enjoyable. But Allah Azza wa Jal says, don't avert your eyes away from them. وَلَا تَعْدُ عَيْنَاكَ عَنْهُمْ تُرِيدُ زِينَةَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. And then He says, وَلَا تُطِعْ, and do not obey مَنْ أَغْفَلْنَا قَلْبَهُ عَنْ ذِكْرِنَا, the one whose heart has been turned away from our remembrance. وَاتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ, and follows his desire. In the Quran, Allah says that there are people who have taken their desire as their Lord and their God. They worship their desires, meaning that if my mind or my nafs asks me to do something, then I will do it regardless of whether it is obedience or disobedience. وَاتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ, follows his desire. And then Allah says, وَكَانَ أَمْرُهُ فُرُطًا. All of his affairs are going to go, if you like, to waste. Meaning that this person, he or she may be working very hard in their life, and they are making sacrifices. But those sacrifices are not going to avail on the day of Qiyamah. They don't get protected from hellfire. They don't get entry into paradise. They don't get forgiveness from Allah. They don't get mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. And so that effort is wasted. So we see how, and we've mentioned previously that Rasulullah said that there will come a time of fitna, and Sahabi said, Ya Rasulullah, how do I protect myself? He said, remain in your home. And we said the reason for this is that your home is a controlled environment. You decide what goes on in your home. You decide what you look at, what you hear, what you think of, what you say. When you come out to an uncontrolled environment, if it is not conducive to your iman and your moral character, Islamic one, then what is going to happen? You are going to be affected by it. And so it is extremely important for us, and even more so for our children, that we keep good company, the company of the righteous, which is not necessarily the most interesting relationships you are going to have in terms of worldly pleasure and enjoyment and so on and so forth. And secondly, when we are going to a place, an environment, one is you go to a certain environment out of necessity. It is your job, it is your work. Even then you are to seek a place that is not going to impact your iman negatively. You're not going to commit major haram, sin, or you're not going to give up the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so when we come out of our homes, we need to determine, where am I going? Is this a good environment or a bad environment? If it is a good environment, then I can go. If it is a bad environment, then not automatically you can't go, but I need to discern, is it a necessity? Am I going for my necessity? Okay. So now I am aware that the reason I am going out of my protective environment is that I have a necessity there, so it needs to be fulfilled, whether that is the market or shops or whatever it is, right? I'm going in order to fulfill my necessity and return to that protective environment. Now, what is also important is to have a protective environment. And this is why it is essential, like Rasulullah said, that don't make your homes, don't turn them into cemeteries. Recitation of Quran, salah in the home is what? It is the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, gatherings where we are reading Quran together. We are trying to understand the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We discuss the stories of prophets and messengers, the stories of Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'in. All of this is going to do what? It's going to bring the sakina, which increases iman, which is protective of iman. It will drive away shayateen, which are there in order to cause mischief and to entice a person to commit sin. And so if we don't create that environment in our homes, then we don't have. If in our homes we are in danger, and outside our homes we are in danger, in greater danger, then what hope do we have for our iman? And even if somehow we are able to protect our iman, because it was maybe instilled in us when we were very young, and there are certain things we don't question, our children are not going to be protected. And we see the effect of the environment, right? Your child goes to primary, then they go on to secondary, you start to see the change in their behavior. Then when they go to college, a greater change. What is happening? They are in the same home, the same set of parents, the same siblings, they eat the same food, their activities at home are the same. What is changing is the environment they are going to. And so it is going from bad to worse, and they are affected by it. So if you don't have a protective environment at home, again, where you are commanding the good and forbidding the evil, commanding the good and forbidding the evil doesn't mean pray. No, because Allah says invite with hikmah. Right? So to lead by example, to invite gently, to make a person realize the rewards of prayer and the consequences of not praying. All of this is work in order to create that environment in our homes. And then the second is the masajid. The masajid are an environment that is protective of our iman and our good deeds. You will not come to the masjid and go away worse off unless you have committed like a major sin. You know, you've come to the masjid and you're backbiting or yeah. But in general, when you come to the masjid, you are going to leave here better off. This is why we say وَافْتَحْ لِي أَبْوَابَ رَحْمَتِكَ. So through the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your iman is going to increase, even if it is by a small amount. So remaining in these environments is extremely essential and important for us. Very quickly, the ahadith, Rasulullah said, لا تصاحب إلا مؤمنا, do not keep company except of a true believer. ولا يأكل طعامك إلا تقي, and your food should not be consumed except by the righteous. Ulama say this doesn't mean that you can't invite somebody who's not righteous to eat your meal. You've got a walima or aqiqah or something. No, you can. Sometimes your family members, it is Eid. Some of them are not practicing, some of them do not pray. You can invite them, but the people that you generally eat with, companionship, have to be righteous. In another hadith, Rasulullah said, and this is known, Al-mar'u ala dini khalilih. A person will choose the way of life of his companion. فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَحَدُكُمْ مَنْ يُخَالِلْ. So every one of you should consider the company they are keeping. And then the last one is al-mar'u ma'a man ahab, that a person is in the company of those whom he loves. It is not possible that you are in bad company where sin is occurring all the time and you say, no, I don't like that, I dislike that sin or I dislike that environment. It is not true. The fact that you are there, except if it is out of necessity. If you are there without necessity, then it is a sign that you are pleased with that environment and you are pleased with the sin and the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us all and to give us realization, insha'Allah al-Aziz. Very quickly, some announcements before we proceed for Jummah. The first one is that previously we announced that we are going to have a hot food hub. So this is starting this week, inshallah tabaraka wa ta'ala. So 5 free home cooked meal each week for families who are struggling, either if they are receiving benefits or they are in debt, so on and so forth. So one can register for this on our website. So you make an application, inshallah, and then you will be able to benefit from this service, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So this is hot meals provided 5 nights a week. Citizen advice surgery. We have somebody that comes in that gives advice to people or has a discussion with people on their issues. This is every other Tuesday. So from the 12th of February, every other Tuesday, it is after in the morning from 11 until 2. And then we have a guest speaker tomorrow night after Salatul Isha. So Isha is at 7 p.m. So between 7 and 8, Ustad Yusuf Patel will deliver a workshop on LGBTQ and how to navigate through the challenges we face, or rather our children face in schools and our places of work and wider society. And likewise, we have another guest speaker, Sheikh Rashid Khan, on Sunday bi'idhnillah ta'ala after Salatul Isha, so 7 to 8 p.m. reviving the heart with the Quran. And so brothers and sisters are invited, inshallah, to both of these programs, Saturday and Sunday. Jazakumullahu khairan.